Today, we're heading beneath one of Cornwall's most remarkable historic homes to uncover what lies below the surface. Welcome to Port Eliot House Estate, a Grade 1 listed stately home in the village of St Germans with a history that stretches back over 800 years. Long before it became the ancestral seat of the Eliot family, this land was home to a medieval priory, and traces of that monastic past still exist beneath our feet. Hidden below the house and gardens is a network of ancient tunnels, believed to have been used by monks to discreetly move through the estate and transport the deceased to burial grounds without passing through the village. These passages predate much of the house above and offer a rare glimpse into life and death in medieval Cornwall. Today, I'm joined by Captain Cornish, and while neither of us claims to be a historian, we're both here for the same reason: to explore, experience, and see exactly what remains of these forgotten corridors. We're taking part in the official paid tunnel tour, which gives guided access to areas not normally open to the public, sharing the stories, architecture, and atmosphere of these dimly lit passageways beneath Port Eliot. So grab your torch, keep your footing, and join us as we step back in time and head underground. This is the Port Eliot Tunnel Tour. Hope you enjoy. Right guys, so today we're at the Port Eliot Estate. I'm with Captain Cornish, and we're going in for an underground tunnel tours for the tunnels under the house. It's going to be quite a long video. It's about a two-hour visit. You can just see the front of the manor house there. But yeah, absolutely incredible. So any of the details and history and Captain Cornish's details will all be linked in the description below. So yeah, make sure you go and give him a subscribe and all that. And I hope you enjoy the video. Cheers.
Well, I take it all. Yeah. But, you know, I feel they're all yeah. You know, had their casting injuries and that, yeah. That's right. Right. I'll just pop in and check that they're ready.
How are you? Are you YouTubers?
Yeah.
Ah, cool.
Do you guys mind being interfered?
Hello. Gabby's brother, isn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah.
Alright, if you like
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you've got your YouTube channel. I think I'm subscribed to you actually.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Hi. Hello, welcome to Port Eliot. So if you want to make your way into the kitchen for me and take a seat. We've only got a small group tonight. It should be really nice actually. We've had quite big groups, haven't we?
Yeah.
So, this is the very last one of the year.
Oh wow.
Fit your house in, isn't it?
And
Blimey.
seat, guys. Make yourself comfortable.
I'm gonna sit here, I think.
Anywhere here or there. I'm going to sit here. Hello, do you want a chair?
Yeah, I'll have a chair.
Yeah, you can grab a chair. So, my name's Coco, by the way. So we'll be me and Nick doing your tour tonight because we're only a little group, which will be really nice. I don't think we've had one, have we, at all this year, Nick? So, and then what I'll do is I'm going to ask you all first where you all settle down. Would anybody like a more cider? Yeah, would you like a more cider? So, I'll take you back 1,500 years, and this was an ancient port. So we have Bronze Age settlements along the River Tythy, and up on the hills we have Iron Age settlements. And you can see from this painting here, the estuary used to come all the way up here to the front of the house, and the harbour is still there as well. Now it's flooded at the moment, so it's slightly come back, and it does flood, because it was a feat of engineering, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. But it used to come all the way up here, and this was the port just outside here in front of the house. obviously the house wasn't there then. And at that time, the land was known as Ecclesia Landadensia, and that's ancient Greek, and it means holy gathering. Now, ecclesia is a very, very powerful name. It's got community wrapped up in that name as well. So we know it was a spiritual epicentre, as the name suggests. Now, back in the 1990s, they did an archaeological investigation in the house, in the servants' basement, and they unearthed some late Iron Age glazed tiles. Now, what that tells us is that at least by the late Iron Age period, the settlement here was high status. To afford glazed tiles in that period of time, you had to be rich. Now, it was a thriving port as well, so it was a very important economic centre, as well as being a very important spiritual epicentre as well. And they were transporting tin and arsenic because there was high reserves of it in this area. And that would have been taken back to Rome and Europe to produce bronze and other metals. So they were becoming rich on the back of the mining, the arsenic and the tin, basically. So it became a thriving settlement, and it became a very well-known spiritual settlement as well, because St Germans visited here, Ecclesia Landadensia, in the 4th century. So he was attracted to this place because it was obviously famed at that point for being a very important spiritual centre. Now, we jump forward to the 9th century, and it's at this point we're coming into the early Anglo-Saxon period. And it attracts another saint here, and this time it's St Augustine. And St Augustine's been enlisted from Rome, specifically to Cornwall, to convert the early Anglo-Saxons to Christianity. And this is when we see the first church being built here. And it's where the church is now. And on the bottom end, you've got this beautiful Norman doorway. And each end of the doorway, at the lower end, are Romanesque windows. And they're Anglo-Saxon. And you can read it architecturally like a book. As you work your way up, they go to early Lancet and so forth and so on. But it started its beginnings as an Anglo-Saxon church, and that's where the Eliot crypt is now, in that Anglo-Saxon chapel at the end. So that's how it started its life. And obviously, he brought with him a small band of monks as well. And they built a small abbey here. Now, they built a small abbey, and they probably repurposed those late ancillary buildings of the Iron Age period, and that's probably why those tiles still survive today. There was also Roman brick here, because there was Roman garrisons as well, all along the River Tiddy. So, after St Augustine's visit, it became Christian, and it was a Christian epicentre. And then by the time we get to the early 12th century, this is mid-1100s, the Augustinian order of monks arrive here, and they arrive en masse, and obviously they're accoladed after St Augustine. And they arrive here, they build a monastery. Now, the names change at this point, and it becomes Port Priory. And it was those monks, the Augustinian order, who accoladed the village that was evolving to St Germans' visit in the 4th century. And that's why the village is called St Germans, after St Germans. Now, the monastery was here for a very long time, but in its humble beginnings, they very quickly obviously gained control of the port. And like the Iron Age settlement before them, the Augustinian order of monks became very, very rich indeed. Now, once the monastery was consolidated, the church had evolved as well, and it became the Cathedral of Cornwall at this point, and that's why it's so huge. It was also, as you know, the starting point of the Celtic Cornish way. So the port was transporting and exporting things like arsenic and tin, and also copper, and at this time it was also transporting pilgrims. So it remained a very important spiritual epicentre, obviously this time Christian, but it made the monks very, very rich, having control of that port as well. So it became a very powerful place, a place where it was one of the main centres for safeguarding holy relics as well.
Was Dando one of those monks at that time?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Dando was around the sort of late 13th century.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
We could tell you about this. Do you know the story of Dando?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So we can tell the story of Dando in a bit. But anyway, I'm going to lose my thread. If I don't-
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Don't apologise. So yes, that's our resident ghost Dando, and I can tell you about him. He was a real priory priest. So the monks remained here right up until Henry VIII's Reformation and the dissolution of the monasteries. And we all know what happens there, of course. We all learnt about it at school. The monasteries were all destroyed, including this one. If you think about those early monks that arrived with St Germans onwards, the monks had been here at that point nearly 900 years. It must have seemed like the end of the world was happening. Now, some of the monks did remain here, safeguarding some of the holy relics that were still here, and the paintings that hung in the refectory. So, but this is when the Eliots arrive into the story, because after the dissolution of the monasteries, the Eliots were on the outer peripheries of Henry VIII's Tudor court, in merchants from Devon, and they were close enough to be able to ask King Henry VIII whether he would grant permission for them to purchase these lands, and of course he did. Now that was a very shrewd manoeuvre, because that port had made everybody rich before them, and of course they wanted control of it. So they purchased the lands, gained control of the port, and some 25 years later they managed to accrue enough money to build their first home here. Now this is coming into the reign of Elizabeth I, during the early reign. And this is one of the examples of one of the first homes that they built here. Now what they did was they used the outer walls of the curtain walls of the monastery as their own outside walls. So because they were very thick. So basically the very first house was long and thin, and was a row of sort of ancillary buildings, as we can see from here, and barns and things like that. Now the next lot of changes happens in the 18th century, and by this time they gain their earldom as well, and a lot of money had come into the Eliot household via a marriage, and that enabled them to bring in the famous architect Sir John Soane, and the famous landscape architect of the south, Sir Henry VIII. And Soane doubled the house in width towards the church, so it's much closer to the church as it used to be. And so the curtain wall of the house is still there, but it's now running down the middle of the house, so it's the spine of the house. But we have some amazing monastic architecture that still survives in the house today. If you want to come on a house tour, there's some leaflets on there, and it is well worth it.
I didn't realise you'd done house tours till you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I'm well keen for that, yeah.
Soane sympathetically saved everything. So there's some of Soane's consolidation work on the curtain wall as well. But the Eliots had saved it prior to that as well, because it was important to them. And all the basement was basically the brew house of the monastery. And we've still got some fascinating things down there. So yeah, you can see that on a full house tour. So basically, a lot of changes happened. Henry VIII, remarkably, moved the estuary away from the front of the house. Now at this time there was a lot of navvies here digging out canals and things like that. There was railroads being built. But so ports, were starting to lose their importance because there was other ways of exporting goods. However, the Eliots moved it because, as I said, they gained their earldom by this point, and they could only leave and come back via a boat, and the estuary is tidal. So they only had certain times of day to come back and leave, and their guests were increasing tenfold because of their urban staff and everything else, so it was far too inconvenient. So they moved the estuary, so finally they could approach the house and leave via horse and carriage, and Repton created this beautiful parkland that we see today in front of us, which hasn't really changed that much. We've got the red book, so we know it hasn't changed that much. So basically they were the next lot of changes. The next lot of changes happens in the 19th century when this whole servants' block was built onto the side of the house, because this is the Eliot heyday, you know, think of Downton Abbey. And where you walk through, where you're in the courtyard there, on either side of that, bless you, on either side of that were the servants' sleeping quarters. This kitchen was built, the scullery, the copper room, and they made the basement wider for the servants as well. So, and it's been like that and remains that way ever since. The Eliots have been here 500 years continuously, and we're on the 11th Earl. So there's two major things there. One, it's the longest humanly occupied house in the UK, because the monks were still here when the Eliots arrived. And it's also the longest aristocratic seat in the UK because they've maintained it for nearly 500 years. So it's a remarkable place. I can tell you that the tunnels started their life as an ancient road. Two ancient roads that came from the estuary. One went to the church and to the Anglo-Saxon graveyard, and the other one came up to the monastery. And that was to deliver goods off the estuary. We still have erosion of the cartwheels on either side, and you can see there's been patches where it's been filled in on either side of hundreds and hundreds of years of carts going up and down the cobbled road. And also, when the road used to go around a bend and the other one used to go straight on, there's a cart stone in there still, and that was to stop the wheels hitting the side of the curve as they turned that corner, and that's still in there as well. So it started off as an ancient road, coming from the estuary. We don't know how ancient. I suspect it was probably right from the Iron Age period, and it's just been resurfaced, and then the monastery was built near the road for practicality, and that would kind of make sense to me. And then over the time they cobbled it and so forth and so on. So when Soane was doubling the house in width, he very cleverly took it all the way to the road, the house. And then turned into tunnels for the servants to be able to deliver the goods straight from the estuary, straight into the tunnels and into the servants' basement, which backs on straight onto the tunnels. So a lot of digging out and filling in and things like that, because the levels are all sort of higgledy-piggledy now. And so when we go into the tunnels, it starts off up here, but then as we go around, it starts to go underneath the ground and around the house. But that used to be the brew house of the monastery, which would have been lower, but it has windows, which tells us that once upon a time it wasn't underneath the ground. So things have been filled in and removed and taken out and so forth by Sir John Soane. And when Soane was extending the house and doubling it with it, that's where he found a lot of Roman brick remnants of ancillary buildings here as well. So again, that's like archaeological evidence of the Romans being here as well. So it's got layers and layers and layers and layers of history. And, everything here is either just been repurposed, and the tunnels are just a great example of that. They've just been reused and reused. And, when something was here already, you wouldn't just get rid of it to start fresh. You would just evolve them into whatever you needed at the time. So the tunnels are fascinating from that point of view as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll all enjoy them when we go in there. So let's turn the lights off, not all of them, and we'll talk about a few stories about ghosts. Because we've had a few experiences here, and it's been quite eventful over a long period of time. And I can tell you the family's own experiences here as well, and some of the staff that have been here for many, many years. And The ghost experiences here have been like everything, from poltergeist activity to ghosts manifesting, to voices that imitate, to visions that kind of shapeshift into living people. I mean, everything that you can think of, people have experienced here, including the family in particular. So, Violet, his real sister, and there was a room that used to be the 8th Earl Nicholas's room, and they were doing it all, you know, to ready for Violet to move in. So they were taking some of the mould off the roof and things like that, and it was a chap called Mark who was doing it at the time. He'd finished doing it and he was walking out and he heard this voice as loud as day saying, "That was a marvellous job, thank you very much," in a very posh voice, as Nicholas would have had. And he heard it as loud as day as he was walking out the room. Now, Violet then moved into the room. Now, bear in mind, this room had been empty for quite a while. And one night, she was just lying in bed watching a horror film, and she finished watching it, she got up to turn the TV off, and the same voice turned around and said to her, in her ear, as loud as anything, "Well, that was rather scary, wasn't it?" Just about before she was about to lie on the pillow. And it wasn't like a scary thing, it was almost like Nicholas was still in that room, and it was being used again. You know, there was kind of like new energy going into it and things like that. So, yeah, so his voice was starting to manifest. Janet, who was the children's nanny, she still works here, she's the chief housekeeper, but she was the nanny for years. So she's been here for 22 years. Now, Janet is a very stoic woman, and she's only had 3 experiences here in 22 years, and others have had a lot more. And she'll always say, nothing ever happens to me. But one evening she was sleeping over, and she was just about to go to sleep, and she saw all the linen, the cupboards opening, and all the linen started to fly out of the cupboards. And she thought, "Oh God, I'm dreaming, I must be dreaming." And then she nodded off. Now, in the morning she woke up, and she thought it was a dream, to find the linen all over the floor, just scattered all over the floor. So she realised at that point that obviously it wasn't a dream, it was really, really happening. Another time was quite recently actually, so she was walking through a corridor in the house, there was no windows or anything, and this really, really cold, freezing cold breeze blew up the corridor, and she kind of walked quickly into the saloon. And this is the way Janet describes it, is a black blob, because it was shapeless. It wasn't in the form of a human or an animal, it was just a blob. And it came like that, sort of, not lunged at her, but sort of loomed at her. And it kind of touched her arm. Now the next day, she couldn't move her arm. It was completely frozen. She couldn't move it all day long. She was going to go to the doctors the next day, but the next day it was fine. And it was the day after this had happened. So, and that happened only maybe 2 or 3 months ago. There was another incident where Mark had walked past the round room. Now the round room is fantastic. It's got the Robert Ledridge mill room. It is amazing. And he walked past, and Bianca was sitting on the settee, and he went, "Morning, Bianca," and she didn't look up, didn't acknowledge him, and then he caught up with her later on that evening, and he said, "Are you okay, Bianca? You know, I said morning to you, and you didn't seem to acknowledge me. You didn't acknowledge me this morning. Is everything all right?" And she went, "Well, I wasn't here. I only arrived back at 7 o'clock tonight. I was away." And the housekeeper here, another housekeeper, Tracy, has seen staff and has walked up and gone, "Hi," for them to just, go up the stairs, to find that they weren't working that day. So we seem to have a ghost here who mimics people in the flesh, but they're not there. And we don't know if it's the same ghost or a different ghost, but there's another ghost that also mimics voices. So the staff here will hear other staff members talking in the next room to go in and there's nobody there. But it's another staff member's voice and things like that. So, or they'll hear somebody thinking they're at work to find out they were off that day. So that's quite a common thing as well. I had my own experience here when I first came. I've had a few since then. I was doing a guided tour and it was quite late and everybody had gone home, and there's a very, very wide glass door that was designed by Sir John Soane. We can't replace it obviously, and it's wooden as well, and it's a very tricky lock. You know, it's one of those jiggly, wiggly locks because the wood's always swelling. And all through the tour I was procrastinating in my head thinking, oh God, please lock the door, what are you going to do? You know, we've got a Joshua Reynolds collection in there, so it was like, I've got to lock this door. So at the end of the day, at the end of the tour, I let them out, closed the door, put the key in, went to lock it and thought, please. And the next minute, I felt a hand on mine, like a physical hand on mine. And I went, and it locked. Took the key out, put it away, carried on doing all the security, and all the way around I was just like, my hand was tingling, because I just felt like, you know, when somebody's touched you, it was kind of that whole feeling. But I knew what happened, but I wasn't processing it. So I kind of thought, I've got a task at hand, I'll carry on. And it wasn't until really, I got home and had a cup of tea, that I actually sat and thought about it, but it wasn't scary. It was like it was helping me. It was quite evidently helping me lock the door. So that was quite a comforting ghost experience, because I kind of felt like whoever it was is on my side anyway. You know. So the things here don't always happen that are horrible, but they certainly do let us know that they're around. There's been children that have seen Dandelion. So Margaret, and she normally does the tunnel tours with us, but she's gone to New York, lucky her. So she's away this week. But Margaret's father was the last butler to have worked here, and he retired back in 1990. And the Elliots always had a rule here that the servants' children were allowed to come and just play, have free reign of the whole house. The Elliots were a very unusual family like that. They treated their servants very much like an extended part of the family. So Margaret grew up here as a small child and spent her whole childhood playing hide and seek in the basement with her little brother who was only 4. You know, they were just free-range kids growing up here. And one day, her brother David, who was only 4, was playing at the bottom of the servants' steps. And he was gone a while, and John, the butler's father, went to look for him and found him, and he said, you know, are you okay? And he said, oh, I'm fine, I've just been talking to Dando. Nobody had told him about Dando, he was only 4, and yet he knew. There was another incident, and this actually got published in a book. Just after the Second World War, the Elliots put on a huge picnic, afternoon tea, for the families in St Germans. And they all came down and had afternoon tea on the lawn out here. All the village children came, and they were all playing, eating, and the next minute the children froze, all screamed at once and ran off. And when they were asked what was wrong, they all said they'd seen Dando, and he was standing underneath the tree, watching them. And as soon as they saw him manifest, they knew it was Dando, and they all ran off. And that got published because the children all reacted at the same time. So it's Dando only appears to children. And the legend has it that he appears to every firstborn earl as well. But he is very much our resident ghost, because there's so many remnants of Dando around If you visit the church, there's a measure, and it's basically a prayer chair. And it was carved in the 14th century, some 100 years after Dando's death, by the priory priests. Now it was carved for a reason, and if you lift the lid up, there's a carving of Dando underneath with his hellhounds telling the story of Dando. And it was carved for the parishioners to sit on and pray that their souls don't end up damned like Dando's. And that's still in the church today. If you go in, it's on the right hand side against the wall. You can lift the lid, and you'll see the carving there. Robert Lenkovich also painted that in the round room with Dando on it as well. So Dando's a really important ghost here. He's like the resident ghost, but yes, he was a real man. And do you want to hear the story of Dando? You know it already, don't you?
Yeah, I do, but go on, you. Yeah.
So Dando was a real priory priest in the 13th century. This is when the monastery and the church were very rich and very, very powerful. It was a thriving monastic port all the way through the medieval period. So Dando, as a priory priest, was a very rich priory priest, but he was also a priest of ill virtue as well. Now, he was a popular priest, but he was a popular priest because of that. So Dando's described as a short, kind of chubby man with a red face and kind of drippy, flabby lips. That's how he's been described in the book. So not a very good-looking chap, quite repulsive, but very rich, which means that he had every single lady in the village. So he was a philanderer, a womaniser, he was a gambler, he was a drinker, and he hung out with all the unsavoury characters of the village, gambling, drinking, and also hunting on the Sabbath, which was a sin. So he was a priest of all sorts of sins. Now the reason he was popular, because the unsavoury characters he hung out with, he used to forgive them at Holy Confession, because at this time, obviously, it was Catholic. And that's why they liked him, because no matter what they did, they'd always be forgiven in Holy Confession. So one day, Dando decides he's going to go hunting on the Sabbath, which was a sin. And because he was rich, he had 30 servants. He took those with him, and all of his hunting dogs. So the hunting party went out, and it was a misty Sunday morning. And Dando didn't care whose fields he was trampling on, whose crops he was destroying, whose hedgerows he was breaking apart while he was galloping off with his hunting party. And they usually caused havoc. Now, Dando, obviously famous for his ale drinking, often took copious amounts of ale for him and his men as well on these hunting parties. So this particular day, halfway through the day, they decided to stop and have a rest. But just before that, a stranger appears on a horse, and he says to the gentleman, "Can I join your hunting party?" And they agree. So he rides at the front, and shortly after they stop and have a rest. They took their pelts off and laid them on the ground, and then Dando instructs his men to go and fetch his ale. So the men go and fetch the ale to find that there is none. They've drunk it all, and they're all dreading going back to tell Dando that all the ale is gone. So they gingerly creep back to Dando to tell him the bad news. "I'm sorry, Lord, but all the ale has been drunk." Knowing that Dando was going to burst into a fit of temper, which he did. And he said, "What do you mean there is no ale? I want ale now." And started slapping his mouth and stamping his feet. And the men at this point, thinking they were all going to get a beating. Now, the stranger at this point turns round and says to Dando, "I have ale, my lord. Would you like some of mine?" And he says, oh yes, thank you so much. And the stranger hands Dando a golden horn full of ale. Dando snatches the golden horn of the stranger and he quaffs the lot. Once it's drank, he hands the horn back to the stranger and says, that is the most delicious ale I have ever tasted. It must have come from heaven itself. And the stranger says, no, my lord, it has come from hell. And he said, well, if you can drink ale that's divine in hell, I would gladly go to hell and drink this ale. Now the stranger said, in return for my delicious ale, I am now going to take your catch. So he bends over to take Dando's catch for the day, and Dando bursts into a fit of fury. You cannot take my catch. We've worked hard to hunt that. That is going back to Port Eliot. And with that, the dark stranger says, I will take what is mine. And he picks Dando up, and in one fluid movement throws Dando onto the back of his horse, leaving the men aghast. He whips the horse and the horse gallops off at full speed. Now Dando's dogs are obviously very loyal to him, and they follow the stranger with Dando on the back, screaming his head off for his men to come and rescue him. And the dogs catch up and they're hot on the horse's heels, but the stranger does not stop. He carries on galloping and galloping until he gets to the estuary at the River Tiddy. He doesn't stop. He carries on and picks up speed and rides straight into the deep water, with Dando on his back, and of course his loyal dogs follow in. Now it is said that some time later the estuary bursts into a ring of flames and then descends into a great mist that envelopes the estuary. And Dando was seen coming out of the estuary in the mist in demonic form with his hellhounds to forever haunt Port Eliot. So that is the story of Dando in a nutshell. And he's been a famous ghost here ever since. And Nick will tell you, because you've got a boat. Further down the River Tiddy, there is a place called Dandy Hole.
Oh, okay.
And it was where Dando was meant to have met his watery
Yeah.
love.
Well, years ago,
Yeah.
when I was a little boy, I grew up here, just like with Margaret and Dave. And I went to church because of the church, and back in those days we called it church. I sang in the choir, went to Sunday school. And when I was about 5 or 6, Dave Bursey's dad, he was the butler. And every morning he'd spend all morning lighting the fire, then going to the next room, cleaning it out, lighting the fire. And then one day we were up by the round room, and I stood right behind John Bursey. And this is when I was about 5 or 6 years old. Dave Bursey, his son, was probably about 4, and Andy Williams was about that age as well. And I'm stood there, and next minute Dave and Andy Williams ran from the round room towards us, shouting, Dando, Dando. And where I'm coming from, everybody, how do they know to shout Dando? This is back in 1963, there was no internet, and when the Earl of St Germans Priory interrogated them, they told the Earl that they saw this figure with like a duff coat on walk through the doors of the round room and just walk through the doors. And the Earl of St Germans Priory at the time got the Cornish Times down, and it was all written in the Cornish Times. But where I'm coming from, go back, God knows how many years, and how do they know to shout Dando? And when I said, and my mum used to work here, and I remember we were outside, and I said to my mum, Mum, because we were told it was a spirit. And I said to Mum, what's a spirit, Mum? And she said to me, we don't talk about it, dear. So she'd probably seen lots of things like all the other servants do now, but she said, oh no, we don't talk about it, dear. And then, and so where I come from on this is how on earth do my friends at 4 years old or 5 years old know to shout Dando? And then later on I was singing in the choir. As I became a teenager, I was singing in the choir. And if you walk up past the choir stores, past near the altar, it's written in stone. And it's a very brief story of Dando. So up until I was about 18, I knew what happened, that experience, but I never knew, because we didn't talk about things like that back in those days. And then it's written in stone in the church saying, once upon a time, there was a priest called Dando, and he enjoyed his ale. And it's a very short story, a full story. And one day he was at the river, and he said, more ale. And they said, there is no more ale. And he said, if you can't get it from heaven, get it from hell. So it's just a short story, it's a long story. And with that, two white figures appeared. This is written in the church, and he was dragged into the river. And ever since then, that part of the river has been called Dandyholm. And I thought, oh my goodness, when I was 18, back in 19, God knows when, I knew of Dandyholm up the river, but that's where the name comes from, Dandyholm.
I remember we were sitting in the nursery one evening, there was myself and Lady Bianca, and we were just sitting having a glass of wine and a chat. And in the hallway, there's this sort of, we didn't know this at the time though, there's a big glass light, it's huge. And we were just chatting, we heard this noise, and it was like a crack of thunder. I mean, it was so loud, we thought a thunderclap had gone off just above the house. It was unbelievable, it was like deafening. So we were like, oh my God, there's a storm. So we're looking out the window, no sign of a storm, no sign of thunder or anything like that. So we had a look round, we couldn't see anything. We thought, well, that's odd. So anyway, we just carried on drinking wine. And it wasn't until the next day, because it was further up the hallway, that Bianca saw the big glass light on the floor. Now, what had happened is it fell off. It just literally fell off. And it had made that huge thunderous noise that we thought was clap thunder, and yet not one little bit of it was smashed. It was perfectly intact, but it emitted this thunderous noise. And it's a glass domed light. That was really strange. So how the hell did that not smash? How did it not smash? But how did it make that loud noise and not smash? So it's just things like that that you just cannot put your finger on, but it doesn't make sense. You know, there's things like that, and it's hard to explain. But Tracy, our housekeeper, has seen actual manifestations. And there was also another incident where Bianca had taken 3 businessmen round, and she got onto the subject of ghosts, and they were all sort of sniggering away a little bit, you know, going, you know. And the servants' bells are still in the servants' basement, but they're all disconnected, so you can't use them anymore. Anyway, 2 of the businessmen had followed Bianca into the main kitchen, and one of them was sort of looking at this picture, and the next minute a bell rang. And he ran out, petrified. Absolutely petrified, and came in here, and when one of the bells was ringing in the basement, and Lady Bianca went, they can't be, disconnected. So she went back in, and obviously it had stopped, and his face was white, and he apologised to her, and he said, I'm really sorry for sniggering earlier. So sometimes it's almost like they'll come out, and they're listening to conversations, and it's almost like they're going, okay, I'll show you that. You know, so that's why I like skeptics being here, because they seem to come out when skeptics are here. It's almost like, oh, well, you believe, you're all right, you know. I'm going to do the skeptic. so yeah, and some people have been on guided tours as well, and I've had funny terms, and said they can't explain why. One woman had to sit down once, and she said, I feel like I'm being bombarded with so many people. And she goes, and she wasn't a psychic or even a believer, but she got that on the guided tour, and she had to sit down for 5 minutes, because she went, look, I'm not into all, you know, the paranormal, but she said, I just feel like I'm being bombarded. Yeah, so things do happen. Is it moving? No? Is it stopped?
It's not moving.
So that was the candles. You see, there's always a good process of illumination as well sometimes. I have to say that night when it was really swinging, we moved the candles to that far corner of the table and it carried on. And it was flickering. See, it is pitch black in here, so you will need torches. Okay. Is Nick here or is he still locking the door? Yeah. The kitchen door? Yeah. Yes.
Are they keys in here?
You've got my keys. The silver one, Nick. Yeah? Right, so if you want to all come in and then we can wait for Nick and then he can shut the door behind us.
So you saying this was the old road, you reckon?
Yeah. So as we go further down, it starts to become a bit more apparent because obviously over the years, it's been resurfaced and resurfaced. But as we go further down, you will start to see the ruts on either side from the cartwheels, and you'll see patches of where they filled them in. And when we get down to the bottom, before the tunnel turns, you'll see the original cartstone sitting there, and that was for when the wagons came around the bend. The cart stones would stop the wheels from clipping the side of the curbs, which would invariably capsize the cart, especially when they've got goods on them. So these are sort of like archaeological evidence, if you like. So when you're an historian, and I've dabbled in archaeology as well, these are the clues that you look for to define whether these were repurposed roads. And so that's the evidence really that we were looking for, was cart stones. And then behold, there is one in there. So that tells us that it was a road, and more than likely an ancient one. We know it was here when Soane arrived because he extended the house up to the road as well. And where it comes out is actually adjacent to the estuary. So you've got geographical location, you've got your cart stone, you've got erosion of the cartwheels. So this is all evidence that it was indeed an ancient road.
There's a little drag coming through.
There is a bit of a drag coming through. Your torch is nice and bright.
It is, yeah.
I mean, I could make it spookier. we
Well,
can go red.
I mean, I like the red. The red's quite good, isn't it? Yeah, the red's quite effective actually. It's like the tunnel from here. Yeah. So we've got a bit of a trip hazard here, just in the middle here, look. And you will see some interesting things, like we've got this really old, ancient boiler. So the Elliots don't throw anything away. You know, they just say, they like to say things over future prosperity. Now you will see you'll start to see the remnants of the cobbles as we go further down. Now these are cells, some of them.
So, for holding people?
No, they weren't for holding people, they were storage cells.
Okay.
So basically they would keep coal, fuel and things like that to provide for the house. They would also put like perishable goods in there as well, to keep them nice and cool. And also we do have tales of smuggling from the 17th century onwards, because the estuary was there, and so it was easy to bring smuggled items here straight into the tunnels pretty much undetected. And we have stories of the smugglers hiding out in these little cells here, playing cards by candlelight and drinking rum and waiting for the tide to come in so they could escape quickly on their ships. So it was a good hiding place. And you can see we've got some stalactites as well on the walls. on the ceiling.
You can tell this is ground floor, couldn't you? And this is the outside.
Yes, yeah, but this is no longer, this is interesting because this was a road and of course that is now the ground up there.
Yeah.
So we are underneath the ground now, but obviously once upon a time this was a road. So this was the original level of the earthworks before either Soane filled it in when he extended the house this way, and I think that's probably what he did.
No window there, isn't there?
Yeah, an old window. So in here, so this window was blocked up probably because of window tax. But this is the windows of the servants' hall, because through here is the servants' basement. Now I can tell you a story. This has now been turned into a recording studio because the girls are musicians. And one evening we were upstairs and Ruby came running up the stairs. She was in there recording and she had the curtains open. That's why they keep them closed actually after that. She saw a man walk past this window with a light. And so myself and Lady Bianca Elliot ran downstairs and we brought with us the dog Fudge, who is the family dog. He's a big German Shepherd. He got to the top of the servants' steps and wouldn't come any further. He just stopped dead in his tracks. So we were kind of like, oh, thanks, Fudge, you know. And we came down and what happened was there's a big doorway down here and I'll show you. Now this door is a nightmare to open. It's wood and it's very thick. So anyway, we unlocked it and we managed to shove it open. We came down here, we looked around and of course there was nobody here. There was no man with a torch or anything. And just as we got back here, we were stood here and we were like, Ruby, there is nobody. The door went boom on its own and slammed with a force. There's no way that door could have done that on its own. And locked myself and Lady Bianca Elliot and Ruby down here in pitch black dark. Now we did shove it open, but it was a bit of a scary one, that was. It was like, why have you locked us in the tunnels? Really? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Now there's one of these cells, it's this one. So if you shine your torch right into the middle of it, that is a priest hole. And you'll just see the top of the rungs of the ladders. It's right in the middle.
Right on the bottom floor? Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
on the
okay.
floor.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
That's a priest hole.
What they would
It's
get down,
beautifully lined dressed stone down there. Yeah, so can you see it, guys? Right in the middle there. You'll see the ladders at the top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Now it has
room
been,
down there?
people have been down there and they've investigated. It's full of, it's silted up obviously over years and years and years, but there was human bones found down there. And when Soane created and extended it, he did have to disturb the Anglo-Saxon graveyard. So that does follow accounts of why there was human bone down there. But it was a priest hole, so the priests used to hide after the dissolution. Like I said, it was a big pilgrimage centre and holy relics were stored here, so of course you're going to have a priest hole.
Somewhere to hide everything.
Yeah.
Cover it up.
Absolutely, all then, you know. So here's a good example. We'll start to see the erosion. So where it's flooding here on the sides is because it's boned, and these were from the cartwheels on either side here. This side's been filled, as you can see. So this bit's been resurfaced. So there was a lot of erosion of cartwheels on this section here. And you can feel it in the middle here, sort of. So this is the cart stone here. So the road, the estuary and the front of the house is just down there. Okay?
There's a bat.
So, yeah, we've got lots of bats as well. So the estuary is just there, and the carts would have come from the estuary up here, and this used to be a road as well, and they would have gone all the way up there. That would have took them to the church, and this road would have took them to the monastery. So as the carts are turning here, this is why we've got this cart stone here, and you'll see this section, the road, is actually very well preserved in this corner here because of this cart stone. Because the wheels couldn't erode this section here, you can see the curve still there in existence, which is really good. And this is part of the monastic walls. So we think section of walls stuck out, you know, so they would have had sort of like turrets and things like that. So they kept sections of it like this. So this is all monastic. Now you can come down here because I want to show you something. You can come right down to the bottom. So we've got other sections of monastic wall here as well. So these must have been part of the ancillary buildings for the monastery. And we've got joist holes here. Now they seem in a funny place, but originally they wouldn't have been because there's that much remodelling gone on by Soane over the years. But he's maintained all this monastic stone here. So there was wooden joists going in these joist holes at some time. But what I want you to do, just for a moment, guys, is switch your torches off because I want you to see how pitch black dark it is down here. It is so dark, as you can see. Now, when there is no light at all, believe you me, you cannot see your hand in front of your face. So can you imagine how terrifying it was when me and Bianca got locked down here and the door slammed on its own? It was very, very, very scary because we just came down here. We didn't have torches or anything. So there you go. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So this is where the lawyer saw the ghost. He was here. So what happened is that we came in here and we all smelt this very strong perfume smell. And we were in here for a while, and then we all sort of came out and headed out. She was loitering here with her friend, and as she was walking out, he was stood there, and she saw him with her own eyes, turned round like that, she was stood here, turned round and went, and then ran out. And she did, she captured him. So I'm going to show you this picture. It's quite remarkable. So there you go. Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's just gone off.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'll show you, I did highlight him so you can see him a little bit better on this one. That's the original picture. So there he is. He looks kind of a Regency period to me. You know, he's got sideburns. So I'll just, so there's his eyes, his mouth, his nose. He's got sideburns. You can even see a frill here on his collar.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And buttons down here. And so she caught him. And he was stood there. He was stood there.
I think someone's going to overwrap your imagination.
No, honestly, I think that is quite...
Because what is that she took, you know, if you try and place it with something?
You can't place it with anything, no. I've done that, I came
Yeah,
down
I
and
can
to
imagine
see,
you have,
you
yeah.
know, like, what could it be that she took on the wall? But it's so peculiar, isn't it? So peculiar. But anyway, she screamed her head off before she even took that picture, because I thought, oh no, the lawyers fell over. That's the first thing I thought. But it wasn't. It was a ghost here somewhere. So Dando obviously was a man of ill virtue. Now if you did get on the wrong side of Dando, he made lanterns out of your bones. And there's a lantern. I'm only joking. It's not made of real bones, don't worry. Somebody was actually touching it the other week when I said it, they went... But yes, take as many pictures and videos as you like, guys. I'm going to show you this now we are very lucky.
Oh, yeah.
We're extremely lucky to have this. And I will talk a little bit about it when everybody's up.
I've already seen that symbol.
It's
Like
ancient.
it's like yin and yang, but three.
Yeah, it is kind of, yeah.
Well, that came from originally then.
This is called a Triskelion.
Okay.
It's a very ancient symbol, okay? Now, it's not just indigenous to Great Britain. These symbols are global. They are found all over the world, in Japan, America, literally all over the world. These were global symbols, ancient global symbols. They've also been found in Newgrange Island as well. It's called a Triskelion. The technique that they use is called plate tracery. And obviously this is before glass, this is before anything. We think that this was here when it was Ecclesia Landadensia, because it's not a Christian symbol. What evolved from this Triskelion is the trefoil, and then you'll see quatrefoils. Now you'll see them all over churches. The trefoil evolved from the Triskelion, which is much older. So this could potentially be Bronze Age or Iron Age. Now symbols have a multitude of meanings. A lot of people say to me, what does it mean? Well, have you got time for me to tell you a book? Symbols speak more than words ever can. And people obviously relied heavily on them because this was before the written word, or at least before people could read. So they're very important symbols. Now this was probably on another part of the estate, I would dare bet, and the monks obviously knew of its spiritual significance, so they obviously protected it. And what Sona's done is obviously he's come across it, recognised its significance, its spiritual significance, and he's placed it into this wall. More than likely because he was turning it into tunnels to get it out of the elements, to stop it eroding any further. Because often the stone that people chose to put their plate tracery on was porous stone, and you can see, because it's kind of softer to work with, but it also erodes in weather. So we think Soane, when he was building these tunnels, brought it in here to protect it. What I love about it is this erosion here in the middle, and this is from thousands of years of people touching it here. And people would have meditated on these symbols, you know, they weren't just to look at. The way spiritual practice has been evolved over the years has changed a great deal, even from early Christianity. Meditation was a huge part of worship in early Christian times, and this was obviously pre-Christian. So people meditated on these, they contemplated and meditated. I actually came down one night with a pendant and it was going bananas in front of it, so there's a lot of energy in here. Now I'll give you an example of how ancient these symbols are and how global they are, because I found one. Because I'm still, you never stop researching. No matter how much you learn, you're never an expert, ever. You're always something to learn. There's always something new. So I'm always trying to find out as much information as I can about this Triskelion, because they're very rare for a start. And I found one. This is in the side of the cliff faces in Utah, in America. And this is a Triskelion. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Can you see? It's almost identical. So this is a Triskelion as well. Now this one, this was carved by the ancestors of the Ute tribes that dwelled in this area of Utah. And this one, they've dated to 15,000 years ago. Wow. So that gives you an idea of how ancient these symbols are and how long they were used for. Now, I can tell you that interpretations of things over the years change and the use of things change as well over the years. So by the time we get to the medieval period, ritual protection marks become a very, very common practice. And often what they would do is they believed that evil spirits came either through openings like windows and doorways and chimneys. And so they would often score the wood or something near the window to protect your house from evil spirits coming through openings. So maybe this Triskelion changed over the years its meaning. So by the time we get to the medieval period and onwards, it could have been put here because it turned into a ritual protection mark, because it's right next to this window and it's right near the opening of the door. So I think this ancient symbol, they knew its magic, they knew it was its reverberation, so they decided to use it as a ritual protection mark. And I think that's a great example of that, where it is. It's not in situ, it's been put there deliberately. But it's a very special thing. We don't tell people about it, only on the tunnel tours. So nobody gets to see this apart from people that come onto the tunnel tours. But it's a remarkable piece of history. I would just advise not to touch it, not because of any, voodoo stuff or superstition, just to protect the stone, because when you touch it, you're eroding it, okay? But you can take pictures of it, you can take videos of it, all you like. That's fine. So I'm going to let you sort of get off and explore a little bit and take as many pictures as you like for the next 10 minutes, quarter hour.
Another quick question.
Yeah.
How would you feel about me walking up the tunnel with my drone following me?
That'll be fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It might not do it. It might be too dark, but
you can have a go.
it'll tell me if it will or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can
cool.
try it, by all means. Don't hit anybody on the head.
No.
Follow you with your torch.
It should follow. Yeah, my torch should brighten it up enough, yeah.
If I stand behind you and shine it, it should be bright enough.
Yeah, cool. We'll do that.
Yeah, you can try it.
Lovely, thank you.
Take photographs.
That's cool.
That is very cool, mate.
Ancient symbol.
Yeah, you don't see them very often, that's for sure.
An old toilet.
Oh yes, an old toilet. If you lift the lid up, you'll see that it's got a very fancy bottom bit.
Yeah, I reckon you're having me on here.
Yeah, even in here, the workers, they like posh toilet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is very nice.
Only the best for the servants.
No, okay. It's not, it wasn't as loud as I thought it would be.
No.
So I hope you've enjoyed it, guys.
That was great.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Definitely be keen to come back and do a house tour.
Oh, yeah, you
Is there
know
an
what?
upside up and down? Or no, it's like
Yeah, so I always say the house tours are Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
So we start downstairs in the basement, we go through the servants' basement,
Yeah.
housekeeper's living room. You get to see the china collection,
Yeah.
the copper collection, and all that way down there. And then we work our way up to the staterooms,
Yeah.
where you'll see the Lenkovich
Yeah.
mural in the round room and the Joshua Reynolds collection.
But there's no filming on the house tour.
No. He's 21 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's home as well. He's in residence at the moment.
Yeah.
And occasionally they will wander through as well, and it's quite funny, isn't it, when the family around. Well, thank you. Any more torches, guys?
that one there.
Thank you very much.
I got one here.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much.
Ideal.
I hope you've
Thank
all
you for a
enjoyed
lovely
it.
evening. Yeah, it's
You're
been
welcome.
brilliant.
Any reviews would be welcome as well
Yeah,
on
yeah.
TripAdvisor.
Okay.
It does help us, for
Yeah.
future, for next year when we start them again.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm glad you've all enjoyed it anyway, guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers, and
Start the
yeah.
house tours again?
No, they're all year round.
Oh, okay. You
Yeah,
can't
this
stop
is the
for
last one.
Christmas.
Yeah, well, the thing is with ghosts are seasonal.
Yeah.
So as soon as
It's spooky time.
very true. The ghosts are still here, by the way, but humans are seasonal. So come January, February, and as soon as you'll tend to find, as soon as the daffodils come up and the crocuses, people are looking to spring. They don't want spooky ghosts at night time anymore. Even though the ghosts don't mind, it's humans, the seasonal. So there is a ghost season. So we start putting other events on. So this is the last one till next October.
Okay.
But the house tours go all year round. You can book on them.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, yeah.
And keep a lookout for other events that are coming up as well. We'll be posting them on Facebook.
I want to do the Is it you just do a Lankovich
We're doing
room
another
on
one.
it?
We're doing another
missed
Lenkovich
the last
in
one.
March,
March.
but you have to book quick on them. They sell out like
As soon as they
literally
go on,
straight
right.
away. We put them on social media within an hour.
Alright.
They've gone. There's such a demand for Lenkovich. So yeah. So look out for those. Yeah. But have a safe journey back, guys.
Thank you
and I
very
will
much.
Look out for your page again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, mate. Yeah.
Lovely to meet you all.
Right, guys. So that was the Port Eliot estate tunnel tours at Port Eliot House. Very, very cool. The entrance to the tunnel is just over there. You can see behind me. Quite a big tunnel. Don't think I picked up anything paranormal, but we'll look on the footage, and if there was, then you would have seen it highlighted in this anyway. Massive shout to Coco for the tour, and massive shout to Captain Cornish as always. Like I say, all the information, of the history of the place, and all that will all be linked in the description and in the intro. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.